Why have used bike prices been so low for so long in the USA? Let me do my best to explain. Let's start with COVID. Demand plummeted at the start of COVID. Nobody was buying any bikes, but as we all know, all of a sudden people started buying a lot of bikes and demand climbed like crazy through the middle of 2022. Was demand like none of us had ever seen before the demand started to taper. Bike brands and their POs, they canceled a lot of POs at the start of the pandemic because no one was buying anything and there was cash flow concerns. But as we all know, bike brands had to start placing POs like crazy to catch up with this demand. So by the end of 2020, bike brands had placed record numbers of POs, but the lead times were crazy long because the factories were short on workers, they had their own COVID closures, and so lead times were out here in 2023, 2024. They were having to build new factories to fill these POs. It was crazy. Inventory. At the start of COVID, inventory was like at a pretty good level, but it started dropping to record low levels as demand increased. And inventory really never caught up with the COVID demand curve. And inventory really didn't spike hard until middle of 2022. This is when all of the factories started to open up as COVID restrictions lifted and inventory started spiking hard. It went right past demand because there's all these huge orders, record orders that were starting to get filled. Now, bike brands didn't want these orders, but they had no choice. They had to take what they ordered. So let's look at price. At the start of COVID, price was at a okay level, honestly, but obviously it increased huge through the end of 2020 through middle of 2022. So if you bought your bike brand new in 2020 to 2022, you paid a really high price. But as inventory climbed, demand fell and prices fell with demand. And so if you're trying to sell your used bike here in 2022, late 22 to 24, 25, things aren't looking good. You paid a lot and you're not getting a lot because new bike prices are going down, because there's so much inventory. So let's look at what's going on now in 2026. We've got the tariffs. Tariffs are spiking prices here in the US, adding to the cost of the bike brands. And so new bike prices are going up. So used bike prices very well could recover. We also have an inventory situation happening here in the USA because it's so expensive to get inventory into the US that inventory is getting diverted to international markets. Sorry about that, international markets, but we're starting to see shortages here in the USA. That's going to keep making new bike prices climb, which is going to drag up the price of your used bike. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments.